My entitled mother-in-law demanded my diamonds, then got publicly embarrassed. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "You don't deserve those diamonds. Hand them over." I laughed, until I realized she was dead serious. Have you ever dealt with someone who believed they were entitled to things you earned? Share your experiences in the comments. I'd love to read them. Hey, my name is Rachel, and what I'm about to share with you was one of the most humiliating, jaw-dropping, and, ultimately, empowering moments of my life. When I got married into what looked like a respectable and close-knit family, I never imagined that the person who'd test my patience the most would be my mother-in-law, Valerie. She's the type of person who thinks respect is owed to her just for existing. And when she saw that I had something she wanted, she didn't ask. She demanded. This story isn't just about some fancy stones. It's about entitlement, manipulation, and a woman who didn't know when to stop until she was forced to. Before we begin, I'd be thrilled to know where in the world you're watching from. It brings me so much joy knowing these stories reach incredible people all around the globe. And if you believe in showing kindness to people, please hit the subscribe button. Also, thank you for being part of this amazing and growing community. Your support is everything. Let us begin. Hey, my name is Rachel, and what I'm about to share with you was one of the most humiliating, jaw-dropping, and, ultimately, empowering moments of my life. It all began with a gift, one that felt like a promise sealed in sparkling light. On our third wedding anniversary, my husband Derek surprised me with a pair of diamond earrings. They weren't flashy or ostentatious, just two delicate studs that caught the light with a quiet elegance. I remember the moment he gave them to me, his eyes soft with that rare vulnerability he only showed when we were alone. "I saw these and thought of you," he said, his voice low, like he was handing me a piece of his heart. I slipped them on, feeling their weight, not just in my ears, but in the moment. They were perfect. That night we hosted a small family dinner at our house to celebrate. The table was set with my grandmother's china, the air filled with the scent of roasted lamb and rosemary. Derek's parents, Valerie and Tom, were there, along with his younger sister, Claire. The conversation flowed easily at first, Claire teasing Derek about his old college haircut, Tom recounting a fishing trip gone wrong. But when I leaned forward to serve the dessert, the chandelier light hit my earrings, sending tiny prisms dancing across the tablecloth. Valerie's eyes locked onto them. Her fork paused midair, and the warmth in her smile cooled. "Oh," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Those are nice. They look like the ones I lost years ago." She tilted her head, her gaze flicking from the earrings to me, then back again. Strange how Derek never bought me anything like that. I forced a smile, my fingers brushing the studs instinctively. "They're beautiful, aren't they? Derek picked them himself." She didn't blink. "They'd look better on me." The room went quiet. Claire coughed into her napkin and Derek shot his mother a look I couldn't quite read. Part embarrassment, part exasperation. Tom, as usual, stayed silent, his eyes fixed on his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. I laughed it off, assuming it was one of Valerie's biting little comments, the kind she tossed out to remind everyone she was the matriarch. But the weight of her words lingered, like a storm cloud hovering just out of sight. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the interaction. Valerie had always been particular, demanding center stage at family events, correcting my cooking in front of everyone, or suggesting how Derek and I should manage our finances. But this felt different. It wasn't just her usual need to control. It was personal. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was being too sensitive. After all, they were just earrings. A gift. A symbol of love, not a battleground. But deep down, I knew better. With Valerie, nothing was ever just anything. A week later, she called me out of the blue. I was in the middle of folding laundry, the phone wedged between my shoulder and ear. "Rachel," she said, her voice syrupy sweet, "I've been thinking about those earrings. They're so lovely, and you know I'm attending that charity gala next month. It's a big deal. Lots of important people. I'd hate to show up looking underdressed." I paused, a half-folded towel in my hands. That sounds like a great event, Valerie. I'm sure you'll look amazing. Oh, I will, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice, sharp and expectant. But those earrings would really complete the look. You wouldn't mind if I borrowed them, would you? My stomach twisted. Borrow them? The earrings Derek had given me? The ones I'd worn every day since our anniversary? I set the towel down, choosing my words carefully. They're really special to me, Valerie. They were a gift from Derek. I don't think I'd feel comfortable lending them out. A bead of silence stretched across the line, long enough to make my skin prickle. Then she laughed. A short, brittle sound that didn't reach her eyes. Special, she repeated, like the word tasted sour. Well, I suppose I'll manage. But you know, Rachel, young girls like you don't always appreciate what you have. Back in my day, we wore jewelry with purpose, not just to show off. I gripped the phone tighter, my polite smile fading. I do appreciate them, I said, my voice steady but firm. That's why I wear them every day. Another pause. Then, we'll see about that. She hung up without a goodbye. I stood there, the phone still in my hand, my heart pounding. It wasn't just about the earrings anymore. It was about what they represented. My place in this family, my marriage, my right to have something that was mine. Valerie wasn't asking to borrow them. She was testing me, seeing how far she could push before I'd bend. And I had a sinking feeling this was only the beginning. The next few weeks were a slow-burning fuse. Valerie's comments grew bolder, each one laced with a mix of envy and entitlement. At a family barbecue, she cornered me by the grill, her wine glass glinting in the afternoon sun. "You're still wearing those earrings," she said, her eyes narrowing. "They must be glued to you." I laughed, trying to keep things light. Pretty much. Derek would probably have to pry them off me. Her lips thinned. He's always been so generous. Too generous, if you ask me. You know, when I was your age, I didn't need diamonds to feel important. The jab landed, but I held her gaze. I don't wear them to feel important, Valerie. I wear them because they remind me of him. She raised an eyebrow, sipping her wine. How sweet. But you know, Rachel, gifts like that come with responsibility. You don't just keep them to yourself. You share them with family. I opened my mouth to respond, but Derek called me over to help with the burgers, and I seized the chance to escape. As I walked away, I felt her eyes on me, heavy and unyielding. That night, I lay awake, replaying her words. Share them with family? What did that even mean? Did she think I owed her my jewelry because I'd married her son? The thought made my chest tighten, a mix of anger and unease. I glanced at Derek, asleep beside me, his face peaceful. Should I tell him? Would he think I was overreacting? I decided to keep it to myself for now, hoping Valerie would let it go. But she didn't. The demands escalated, each one more brazen than the last. At Claire's birthday dinner, she brought it up again, this time in front of everyone. We were at a cozy Italian restaurant, the kind with checkered tablecloths and candles flickering in glass jars. Valerie leaned across the table, her voice loud enough to carry. "Rachel, I was serious about those earrings. The gala's in 2 weeks and I need them. You're not even using them properly, just wearing them around the house like they're costume jewelry." The table fell silent. Claire's fork froze halfway to her mouth, and Tom shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Derek's jaw tightened, but before he could speak, I set my glass down, my voice calm but edged with steel. "Valerie, these were a gift from Derek. They're not up for grabs. I'm sorry if that's disappointing, but I'm not lending them out." Her eyes widened, like she couldn't believe I'd dared to say no. Then she laughed, a high, forced sound that grated on my nerves. "Oh, Rachel, don't be so dramatic. I'm not asking for your firstborn. I just thought you'd be generous enough to help out your mother-in-law. Clearly, I was wrong." Derek finally spoke, his voice low but firm. "Mom, drop it. They're Rachel's. End of story." Valerie's smile didn't waver, but her eyes turned cold. "Fine," she said, picking up her menu. "Let's not make a scene." But the air was thick with tension, and I knew this wasn't over. As we drove home, Derek reached for my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "I'm sorry about her," he said. "She's always been intense. I'll talk to her." I nodded, but my mind was racing. Valerie wasn't just intense, she was relentless, and something told me she wasn't going to stop until she got what she wanted, or until I made her. The dinner at the Italian restaurant left a bitter taste that lingered long after the plates were cleared. Valerie's public jab about the earrings wasn't just a demand, it was a declaration of war, one she'd dressed up in a smile and a laugh. Driving home, Derek's apology felt like a bandage on a wound that was still bleeding. "She'll get over it," he said, his voice tight with frustration. But I wasn't so sure. The way Valerie's eyes had glittered, cold and calculating, told me she was far from done. I clutched the earrings as I slipped into bed that night, their tiny weight a reminder of the line I'd drawn. Saying no had felt like a victory, but it also felt like I'd poked a bear. The next 2 weeks were a tightrope walk. Valerie didn't call, didn't text, didn't drop by with her usual unannounced visits. The silence was worse than her demands. It was heavy, loaded, like the calm before a storm. I tried to focus on work, on Derek, on the little routines that grounded me. But every time I caught my reflection, the earrings sparkling against my skin, I felt a flicker of dread. What was she planning? Because Valerie didn't retreat. She regrouped. Then came the gala. It was the event she'd been harping on for weeks, a glittering charity fundraiser she hosted every year at a swanky downtown hotel. Derek and I were expected to attend, of course. Family obligation, not an invitation. I almost backed out. The thought of facing Valerie in her element, surrounded by her socialite friends and their judging eyes, made my stomach churn. But Derek insisted. "If we don't go, she'll twist it into something else," he said, rubbing his temples like he was already exhausted by her. "Let's just get through it." So I went. I chose a simple black dress, elegant but understated, and wore the earrings, not out of defiance but because they were mine. They felt like armor, a quiet reminder that I wasn't the one who needed to back down. When we arrived, the ballroom was a sea of champagne flutes and forced laughter, the kind of place where smiles hid sharp edges. Valerie was in her element, gliding through the crowd in a deep emerald gown, her presence commanding attention like a queen holding court. She greeted us with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Rachel, Derek, so glad you could make it," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "Do enjoy yourselves?" I nodded, my grip tightening on Derek's arm. Something was coming. I could feel it in the way her gaze lingered on my earrings, in the slight curl of her lip. We mingled, made small talk with strangers, and sipped overpriced wine, but the tension never left me. It was like waiting for a trap to spring. It happened during her speech. Valerie took the stage, microphone in hand, to address the crowd about the charity's mission. At first, it was all polished platitudes, gratitude for their generosity, stories of the children they'd helped. Then her tone shifted, her eyes finding me in the crowd. "In our family," she said, her voice carrying across the room, "we value tradition. Heirlooms, treasures passed down through generations, are meant to unite us. But some women, outsiders, don't understand that. They hoard what should be shared, clinging to things that don't truly belong to them." The room went still, heads turned, eyes darting to me, then away, as whispers rippled through the crowd. My cheeks burned, the heat crawling up my neck. The earrings, tiny as they were, felt like they were glowing, branding me as the outsider she'd named. Derek's hand tightened around mine, his knuckles white, but he didn't say a word. Why didn't he say anything? I stood there frozen, the weight of 100 stares pinning me in place. Valerie continued her speech, her voice smooth as silk, but the damage was done. She'd turned my refusal into a public indictment, painting me as selfish, ungrateful, unworthy. The rest of the night was a blur. People avoided me, their polite smiles tinged with curiosity or pity. I wanted to leave, to rip the earrings off and throw them at her, but I stayed, forcing myself to hold my head high. Derek tried to reassure me, whispering, "She's out of line. I'll handle it." But his words felt hollow. He hadn't handled it. Not when she'd demanded the earrings, not when she'd humiliated me in front of everyone. I loved him, but his silence in that moment stung deeper than I wanted to admit. As we drove home, the city lights streaking past, I replayed her words. Outsider, hoarder. They weren't just insults, they were a strategy. Valerie wasn't just after the earrings, she was after control over me, over Derek, over the narrative of our family. She'd weaponized her audience, knowing they'd eat up the drama, knowing it would pressure me to give in. And for a moment, I wondered if she was right. Was I being selfish? Were the earrings worth this war? But then I touched them, the cool metal grounding me. Number. They were a gift, a symbol of Derek's love, not some family relic she could claim. She wasn't entitled to them, no matter how loudly she demanded. And yet, the question gnawed at me. What would she do next? Because Valerie didn't lose gracefully. She'd already escalated from hints to demands to public shaming. What was her endgame? The next morning I woke to a text from Claire, Derek's sister. "I heard what happened," it read. "Mom's telling everyone you're trying to steal her legacy. She's not stopping, Rachel. Be careful." My heart sank. Claire was the only one in the family who'd ever seemed to see through Valerie's facade, but even she sounded worried. I showed the text to Derek, expecting him to be as alarmed as I was. Instead, he sighed, tossing his phone onto the counter. "She's just being dramatic. Let her talk herself out." "Dramatic?" I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. "She humiliated me in front of a room full of people, Derek. She's telling lies about me. That's not drama. That's calculated." He looked at me, his eyes tired but soft. "I know. I'm sorry. I should have said something last night. I didn't want to make it worse." "Worse?" I laughed, but it came out bitter. "How could it get worse?" He didn't answer, and that silence said more than words ever could. For the first time, I wondered if Derek was as trapped by his mother as I was. He loved me, I didn't doubt that. But love wasn't enough when Valerie was determined to bend us both to her will. I needed a plan, not just to protect the earrings, but to protect myself. Because Claire was right. Valerie wasn't stopping. And if I didn't stand my ground, she'd keep pushing until I broke. That afternoon, I found myself staring at the earrings in their velvet box, their sparkle dimmed by the weight of what they'd come to represent. I could give them to her, end this now, and let her win. It would be easier. But easy wasn't right. I snapped the box shut, my resolve hardening. Valerie thought she could shame me into submission, but she'd underestimated me. If she wanted a fight, I'd give her one she wouldn't see coming. The question was how. I couldn't confront her directly, not after the gala. She'd twist it, play the victim, and rally her allies. No, I needed to be smarter, to turn her own tactics against her. As I sat there, an idea began to form, risky but bold. It would take careful planning, and I'd need help. Maybe Claire, maybe someone outside the family. But if it worked, Valerie wouldn't just be embarrassed, she'd be exposed. I picked up my phone and texted Claire back. "I need to talk. Can you meet me?" Her reply came almost instantly. "Name the place." As I typed my response, my heart raced with a mix of fear and determination. This wasn't just about earrings anymore. It was about standing up to someone who thought she could control me. And whatever happened next, I was done playing Valerie's game. It was time to change the rules. The text to Claire felt like a lifeline, a spark of defiance in the suffocating fog of Valerie's schemes. As I waited for her response, my mind churned with possibilities, ways to outmaneuver Valerie without sinking to her level. Claire's reply came quickly, and we agreed to meet at a quiet cafe the next day. I didn't tell Derek. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I wasn't sure where his loyalties lay anymore. His silence at the gala, his dismissal of Valerie's lies as drama, had cracked something between us. I loved him, but love didn't mean blind agreement, and I needed to protect myself. The earrings were just the battleground. The real fight was for my voice, my place, my dignity. That night, I barely slept, my thoughts racing between anger and strategy. By morning, I was resolved. I'd meet Claire, lay out my idea, and find a way to turn Valerie's public humiliation back on her. But as I got ready, slipping on the earrings out of habit, I noticed something off. The velvet box on my dresser felt lighter than usual. My heart sank as I opened it. Empty. The earrings were gone. I tore through the bedroom, checking drawers, the bathroom counter, even the pockets of my coat from the gala. Nothing. My pulse hammered in my ears as I stood there, staring at the empty box. They couldn't just vanish. Someone had taken them. The realization hit like a punch. Valerie? Had she come into our house? Had she gone this far? I was about to call Derek when I heard the front door open, his familiar footsteps echoing down the hall. I met him in the living room, my voice shaking but sharp. "Derek, did you take the earrings?" He froze, his keys still in his hand, and the hesitation in his eyes told me everything before he even spoke. Yeah, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I gave them to Mom, just for a bit. She said it meant a lot to her, Rachel. I didn't think it was a big deal." My breath caught, a mix of disbelief and rage flooding my chest. "A big deal? Are you serious? You didn't even ask me." He stepped closer, his hands raised like he was trying to calm a wild animal. "She's family, Rachel." She kept going on about how those earrings reminded her of something she lost, how it would help her feel whole again. "I thought you'd understand. It's just temporary." "Temporary?" My voice cracked, and I hated how small it sounded. "Derek, those were a gift from you. To me. Not her. You let her manipulate you, and you didn't even think to talk to me first?" His jaw tightened, and for a moment I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by defensiveness. "Manipulate? She's my mom, Rachel. She's not some villain. You're making this bigger than it is." I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Bigger than it is? She humiliated me in front of a room full of people. She's spreading lies about me stealing her legacy. And now you've handed her the one thing she's been obsessed with, without even asking me. How is that not a betrayal?" He didn't answer, just looked away, his silence louder than any argument. I felt the weight of it, the realization that Derek, the man I'd built my life with, had chosen his mother's feelings over mine. It wasn't just about the earrings anymore. It was about trust, about whether he saw me as an equal or just an extension of his family's expectations. I turned away, my hands trembling as I grabbed my purse and a small duffel bag from the closet. "Where are you going?" Derek asked, his voice tinged with panic. "I'm not leaving," I said, zipping the bag with more force than necessary. "But I need space, and I need to figure out how to fix this, since clearly you won't." "Rachel, come on!" he started, but I cut him off. You don't get to make this okay. Not right now." I slung the bag over my shoulder and walked out, my heart pounding with a mix of hurt and determination. I wasn't running away. I was regrouping, just like Valerie did. But unlike her, I wasn't playing for power. I was fighting for myself. I drove to the cafe where I'd planned to meet Claire, my mind a storm of emotions. Betrayal stung, but it also clarified things. Derek's choice had shown me where I stood, and it lit a fire under me. Valerie thought she'd won by getting the earrings, but she'd only pushed me harder to fight back. And I had a plan, or at least the beginnings of one. If Claire was on my side, we could expose Valerie's tactics, not just to the family, but to the social circle she valued so much. The gala had been her stage. Maybe it could be mine too. Claire was already at the cafe when I arrived, sipping a latte at a corner table. She took one look at my face and set her cup down. "You okay?" "You look like you're about to punch someone." I slid into the seat across from her, dropping my bag on the floor. Derek gave Valerie the earrings, took them from my jewelry box, and handed them over like they were nothing. Her eyes widened. "He what?" Oh my God, Rachel, that's insane. I knew Mom was pushing him, but I didn't think he'd actually do it. Pushing him? I leaned forward, my voice low but urgent. What do you mean? Claire hesitated, glancing around the cafe like she was checking for eavesdroppers. She's been calling him nonstop since the gala, guilt-tripping him about family loyalty, saying you're dividing us by keeping the earrings. She even told him they were some kind of heirloom, which is total crap. I checked with Dad. She's never had diamonds like that. She's just obsessed because they're yours. I clenched my fists under the table, the confirmation of Valerie's lies fueling my resolve. She's not just obsessed. She's trying to control me, Claire, and Derek's letting her. Claire nodded, her expression grim. That's Mom. She doesn't stop until she gets what she wants. But Rachel, you can't let her win. What are you going to do? I took a deep breath, the plan taking shape in my mind. I want to get the earrings back, but not just that. I want everyone to see who she really is. At the gala, she used her audience to shame me. What if we used her own event to show people she's not the gracious matriarch she pretends to be? Claire's eyes lit up, a slow smile spreading across her face. You're talking about turning the tables. I'm in, but how? I leaned in, my voice steady despite the chaos in my chest. She's hosting another charity event next month, right? Smaller, but still a big deal. If we can prove she lied about the earrings being an heirloom and show how she's been manipulating everyone, we could expose her in front of the people she cares about most. But I need evidence, something concrete. Claire tapped her fingers on the table, thinking. I might be able to help. Mom keeps records of everything, receipts, letters, even old jewelry appraisals. If we can get into her study, we might find proof she's lying. And I know someone who works at the hotel where the gala was. Maybe they saw something like her planning that speech. It was a start. Risky, but possible. We spent the next hour hashing out details, how to search Valerie's house without her noticing, who to talk to, what to look for. Every step felt like a gamble, but it also felt right. For the first time since this started, I wasn't just reacting. I was fighting back. As we left the cafe, Claire grabbed my arm. Rachel, be careful. Mom's not stupid. If she finds out you're digging, she'll come for you harder. I know, I said, my voice firm, but I'm done being her pawn. She wants a fight? She's got one. Driving to a nearby hotel to check in for the night, I felt the weight of Derek's betrayal and Valerie's schemes pressing down on me. But I also felt something else, a spark of hope. The earrings were gone, but they'd given me something more valuable, clarity. This wasn't just about jewelry, it was about who I was and who I refused to become. Valerie thought she'd broken me. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The hotel room became my temporary fortress, a place to plot while the sting of Derek's betrayal lingered like a bruise. Claire and I spent days digging, her sneaking into Valerie's study, me tracking down the gala's hotel staff. We found no heirloom records, only Valerie's obsession laid bare. Her lies about the earrings were clear, but exposing her needed precision. As I strategized, Claire's warning echoed. Valerie would retaliate if she sensed a threat. I wasn't backing down, but I had to be smarter than her. 2 weeks later, Valerie's next move came. A televised charity auction for a children's hospital. She'd auction family heirlooms, and there on display were my earrings, labeled Vintage Heirloom, Custom Crafted. Rage surged, but so did opportunity. I called my cousin Marissa, a renowned jewelry appraiser with airtight credentials, and shared my plan. She was in. At the auction, the ballroom buzzed under bright lights, cameras rolling. Valerie, radiant in sapphire silk, gushed about the earrings, history. I sat in the back, heart pounding, Marissa beside me. When the bidding opened, Marissa stood, her voice cutting through the hum. Excuse me, those aren't vintage. I helped my cousin Rachel pick them 3 years ago. I have photos from the jeweler. The room froze. Gasps rippled. Cameras swiveled to Valerie, her smile rigid, eyes darting. Derek, nearby, stared, stunned. Marissa held up her phone, showing time-stamped photos. The crowd murmured, sensing scandal. Valerie stammered. A misunderstanding. But the damage was done. Her facade cracked, live on air. If you were me, would you have exposed her publicly or kept it private? Let me know below. The auction's fallout was electric, the room buzzing with whispers as Valerie's lie unraveled on live TV. Marissa's photos, crisp, undeniable, had stripped away Valerie's carefully crafted image. Her frozen smile, caught by every camera, was a victory, but my heart still raced with what came next. I'd exposed her, but Valerie wasn't the type to slink away quietly. As the crowd dispersed, I braced for her counterattack, knowing she'd come for me. Backstage, she found me, her face a mask of fury, eyes blazing as she stormed over. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone," she hissed, her voice low but venomous, as if she could still control the narrative. I stood my ground, my voice steady. "You tried to steal something that wasn't yours, Valerie. You embarrassed yourself." Her lips curled, a bitter laugh escaping. "Derek will take my side, he always does." I met her gaze, unflinching. "That's fine, but I'm done being silent." To my shock, Derek stepped forward, his face tight with resolve. "You crossed a line, Mom," he said, his voice firm, cutting through the tension. "This is why we don't have peace." His words hung heavy, a line drawn after months of silence. Valerie's eyes widened, betrayal flickering across her face. For once, she had no retort. She spun on her heel and stormed out, her heels clicking like a fading echo. I wasn't triumphant. The weight of the fight, her demands, Derek's betrayal, the public showdown, lifted, leaving me raw but free. The earrings back in my hands felt heavier now, symbols of a battle won. But the real victory was my voice, no longer silenced. The backstage confrontation left the air charged, Valerie's retreating footsteps a stark contrast to the silence she left behind. Derek's unexpected stand against her was a turning point, his words, "You crossed a line, Mom," echoing in my mind as we drove home. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of the man I'd married, someone willing to face the chaos his mother had sown. But the sting of his earlier betrayal lingered, and I knew freedom from Valerie's grip wasn't the end of our story. It was a beginning, one that demanded work, honesty, and a reckoning. Weeks passed, and the dust settled into a fragile calm. Derek approached me one evening, his eyes heavy with regret. "I messed up, Rachel," he said, his voice raw. "I should have stood by you from the start. I let her manipulate me, and I hurt you. I'm sorry." It wasn't just words, it was a promise to do better. We started therapy, peeling back layers of unspoken tensions, his loyalty to his mother, my fear of losing myself. It wasn't easy, but it was real, each session rebuilding trust we'd let erode. Valerie, meanwhile, vanished from our lives. No calls, no surprise visits, no barbed comments. Her absence was louder than her demands ever were, a testament to her wounded pride. Claire later told me she'd retreated into her social circle, spinning tales of being misunderstood. But her influence over us was broken. I didn't gloat. Her silence was enough. The earrings, returned after Marissa's public reveal, sat in their velvet box for days before I wore them again. When I finally did, they felt different. Not just a gift, but a symbol of what I'd fought for. They sparkled with a new meaning, self-respect, hard-won, and fiercely guarded. Every glance in the mirror reminded me I'd stood up to a storm and emerged whole. Today, those diamonds are more than jewelry. They're a testament to the power of refusing to shrink, of claiming my voice when silence would have been easier. What's something you stood up for that made you feel powerful, even if it was tough? Share below. I want this to be a space where your voice matters too. Thank you for listening to my story. If you're still here, you're amazing, and I truly appreciate you. Stories like this help others feel seen, so your support means more than I can say. Did this story hit a nerve? Did it remind you of someone? If so, subscribe to catch more real stories like this. And tell me, have you ever had to teach someone your kindness isn't weakness? Let's talk in the comments. Your stories inspire me as much as mine might inspire you.